the coming collapse of El Nino flipped to La Niña. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issued a news alert. The flip from El Niño to La Niña raises the risk of a strong upcoming hurricane season. During El Niño, rising heat from the eastern Pacific flows into the upper atmosphere, leading to stronger winds at high altitudes. This creates vertical wind shear, a difference in wind speed and direction at the surface versus higher in the atmosphere. And vertical wind shear can really act to tear apart hurricanes as they try to form. For the U.S., this climatological flip-flop will likely mean a greater risk of major hurricanes in the Atlantic, as well as areas of drier than usual weather in the southern portions of the country. Globally, La Niña usually leads to declining temperatures, but the lag in when the effects take place means that 2024 will likely still be a top 5 year for temperature in climate history. This loop of sea surface temperature anomalies runs from November 29, 2023 to February 14, 2024. And it reflects El Nino conditions across the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean with warmer than normal water. However, the last few frames indicate that the departures from normal of the sea surface temperatures are lessening. And this is part of the process that will likely result in La Niña, colder than normal water, conditions by the late spring or early summer across the tropical Pacific Ocean. El Niño and La Niña describe opposing patterns in the trade winds that encircle the equator, blowing west from South America toward Asia. In a neutral year, when neither pattern is in play, these trade winds push warm water westward, which drives cool ocean water up from the depths to replace it. Above normal sea surface temperatures continue this month across most of the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. But there are signs that this El Nino episode, which began about a year ago, will flip to La Niña conditions, colder than normal, by the early part of the 2024 summer season in the northern hemisphere. A flip from El Nino to La Niña across the equatorial Pacific Ocean can have big implications on the upcoming 2024 Atlantic Basin tropical season. In fact, this expected dramatic change in sea surface temperatures across the Pacific Ocean may be a major contributor to a very active tropical season in the Atlantic Basin, as atmospheric conditions are typically more favorable, lower wind shear, during La Niña episodes for the development and intensification of tropical storms. A second favorable factor for a very active tropical season in the Atlantic Basin is the likely continuation there of widespread warmer than normal sea surface temperatures. Finally, as oceanic cycles play a critical role in global temperatures, a flip from El Nino to La Niña in the world's largest ocean could mean a return to closer to normal levels following a spike during the past year or so. Some facts that you need to know about El Nino. El Niño was originally recognized by fishermen off the coast of South America as the appearance of unusually warm water in the Pacific Ocean, occurring near the beginning of the year. El Niño means the little boy or Christ child in Spanish. This name was used for the tendency of the phenomenon to arrive around Christmas. El Niño, easterly trade winds weaken. Upwelling ocean currents along the coast of Peru and along the equator weaken. Surface waters in the tropical Pacific are warmer than normal. El Niño, including dry drought and wildfire-prone conditions in Australia and Indonesia. El Niño events are associated with cool and wet winters along the southern U.S., and with mild winters in Alaska and northwest Canada. Now some facts about La Niña. La Niña means the little girl. La Niña is also sometimes referred to as an ENSO cold event. La Niña, easterly trade winds strengthen. Strong upwelling of cold ocean currents along the equator and coast of Peru keeps warm surface waters in the western Pacific. Surface waters in the tropical Pacific are cooler than normal. La Niña, including wet conditions in Australia and Indonesia, raising risks of flooding. La Niña events in the tropical Pacific can shift the jet stream to the north, causing warm and dry winters across the southern U.S., and wetter and cooler conditions in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska. Every 2 to 7 years, sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific Ocean flip between warmer than average and colder than average phases, pausing in the neutral phase between. A transition from El Nino to ENSO neutral is likely by spring 2024, and odds are increasing for a full-blown moderate to strong La Niña. By the time we get to the summer season in the northern hemisphere, which coincides with the first part of the Atlantic Basin, includes Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean Sea, Gulf of Mexico, tropical season. This El Nino event began about a year ago following back-to-back years in which La Niña dominated the scene in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. For the past several years, most El Nino events have been rather short-lived, lasting on average about 12 to 18 months, whereas La Niña occurrences have usually lasted for considerably longer periods of time. During normal conditions in the Pacific Ocean, trade winds blow west along the equator, taking warm water from South America towards Asia. To replace that warm water, cold water rises from the depths, a process called upwelling. El Niño and La Niña are opposite phases of what is known as the El Nino Southern Oscillation, ENSO, cycle. The ENSO is a recurring climatic pattern involving temperature changes in the waters of the eastern and central tropical Pacific Ocean, and changes in the patterns of upper and lower level winds, sea level pressure, and tropical rainfall across the Pacific Basin. El Nino is often called the warm phase and La Niña is called the cold phase of ENSO. These deviations from the normal surface temperatures can have a large-scale impact on the global weather conditions and overall climate. El Niño and La Niña can have widespread impacts on climate and weather patterns, with changes in temperature and rainfall in various parts of the world, and it is the dominant feature of climate variability on interannual timescales. Scientific progress on the understanding and modeling ENSO has improved prediction skills within a range of 1 to 6 or more months in advance, helping society to prepare for the associated hazards such as heavy rains, floods, and drought. The value of these predictions can also translate into hundreds of millions of dollars in potential savings. Why do the El Niño and La Niña climate patterns matter? The extreme weather events worsened by El Niño and La Niña affect infrastructure, food, and energy systems around the world. For example, when less cold water comes to the surface off the west coast of South America during El Niño events, fewer nutrients rise from the bottom of the ocean. That means there is less food available for marine species like squid and salmon, in turn reducing stocks for South American fishing communities.